with our next guest, Terry Keys, and he writes mysteries as well. And he has a new book. Well, he has a series, and then he has a new book that's come out called Everyone is Bat X Crazy. So I'll do it like that.
I was wondering if you were going to say it.
So
Hi, welcome, Terry.
Yeah, Terry, welcome to Black Lives Matter TV.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here tonight.
And are you from Houston or lived in Houston, or the information that I saw had you in Houston?
Well, it says I see Dickinson, Texas. Where is that?
I do, but originally what I saw was Houston, so I want to find out where actually.
That's right. So
Okay.
Houston is where I'm from. Actually, a little town south of Houston called, which is 288 South. So
what?
Live in Texas. Can you hear me?
Yes. Well, where you were from, I missed the town that you said you were from.
That's okay. So it's a little small town called Rochelle, Texas, which is 288 South.
Okay, yes, Rochelle.
Oh, you've heard of that?
Okay. Yeah, it's like, Houston exurb is like 50, 60 miles from Houston. That's like right. That.
About 45 minutes south.
We got
I've only lived in a couple of cities in Texas. And I was in a small town too. I was in Killeen, Texas.
Okay. I'm familiar.
Yeah. But there's about 100 towns that are like 50 miles from Houston.
That's true.
In all directions. It's a whole lot of places with different names. So, but I want to let you know the way that I found out about you as a writer is it was an interesting route. And I have a new book that recently came out, and I did a special on Amazon for 3 days, and it was on that free download bestseller list for the African American mysteries. And my book was 5th, it was 3rd, and I wanted it to inch up, and then I was bumping into your book.
I'm sorry. Oh gosh.
No, it's great, but this is true. And I thought, Terry Keys, who is this Terry Keys person? So then I looked you up, and I saw you had a series of books from Houston area, and I said, we need to get him on the show. This is a true story about how I became aware of your work. So it just never, you never know. And your work sounded so interesting. And then I saw your new book too. That's not fiction. It's nonfiction. So tell us, one, how long have you been writing? And published writing, not just writing in general.
I started probably 2013, 2014.
Okay.
And then the first book came out in 2015. So which book of mine was on the list ahead of yours that you were trying to inch into?
It was, I think, Chain Guilt.
Okay. Chain Guilt. Yeah, that was the first one in the series, and that one came out in 2015. So.
Okay. And it looks like you have a character that you continuing in the series named David Porter, a police officer. So do you have a police background?
So I have a background in corrections. Started off working in corrections early manhood, early 20s.
Okay.
So saw a lot of things. Reason I'm not in corrections now. But I listened to some of your earlier guests, and a lot of them talked about what happened with George Floyd, and how that kind of impacted everyone. And so what I wanted to do with my police officer was let everyone see a different side of policing. Typically when we see it in the news, we see one side, especially in our community.
Okay, so David Porter he's a Black police officer.
He is.
Okay.
He is.
Okay. And you have 5 books with him as the main character.
I do. Working on number 6 now. So yeah, both of them are trilogies. First 3 is a trilogy, and then the second set will be a trilogy as well. So yep. 6'3", about 250, and a little bigger than I am, but he's a big Black African American cop. That's right.
Okay, well, from the ladies and some of the young women that that come to visit Houston, and my daughter who lives here, she goes out and she says, you know what, Houston has some fine Black police officers.
So
And I want them to lock me up. She said, I'm gonna put
oh
my
my
arms down,
goodness.
handcuff me.
When were you one of the people talking like that?
No, I wasn't. That's not them. She goes out a lot with her friends, and they were saying it too, but ones from out of town were remarking about that. So that was fun. And the description that you gave just reminded me of how she described it. She says it every time she goes out.
Well, I think that a Black police officer in a city like Houston that's a backstory in and of itself. So do you explore some of the struggles that he has with being a police officer and being maybe in patrolling some of the neighborhoods that he has to patrol?
Yeah, I do. So I think my story, I was kind of listening to Eric's interview, and he talked about finding your audience, and my story. I've been married for 23 years. Married to my wife is white. Live in Texas, South Texas, deep South Texas. So there's some experiences, life experiences that I have that are unique, and I feel like I could share it. I could share a lot of those stories through my character. So it's not just obviously it's a fiction. It's a story, but I can tell some of those other sub stories and subplots within the overarching story itself.
Okay. Now, what's the setting for your story? Is it in Houston or is it
It
somewhere
is
else
Houston.
altogether?
It is in
Okay.
Houston. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Well,
So yeah, you'll be familiar with some of the places that I talk about in the books.
okay. All right. Now, this David Porter character, when you first start, is he a police officer, existing police officer, and then you kind of do some backstory on him, or is it mostly him crimes that he investigates, or is he is he a detective or is he actually an officer? So I'm
So
asking you several questions
that's
about
okay.
him.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he is a detective.
Okay.
He's got a background in criminology and a background in clinical psychology. He's a ex-Army Ranger, ex-college football player. So very well-rounded guy. And then we tell some of his backstories through the first story, the second story, the third story. But pretty well-rounded fellow. But I can tell again a lot of the subplots and sub stories about him being black, him being a black police officer through the novels.
Does
So
that
these
oh
go ahead, Ryan, because I've
okay.
already asked him a bunch of questions.
Well, I guess I'm trying to delve into the character because I really think it's such a interesting concept with a lot of different layers. And I'm just wondering, I know you say you kind of go into his backstory a little bit, but does that sometimes cause struggle with who he's actually, like, for instance, is he struggling with his blackness, or is he is he like, okay, I have to arrest this young black man, but I know this could have been me when I was a kid. Does he go through those struggles as he's solving his cases?
So I'll answer it like this. So I work my day job. I work in corporate America.
Mm-hmm.
Like I already mentioned, I'm my wife is white. So my character, and I can tell some of my stories through this character as well. He doesn't struggle with his blackness. He struggles with everyone else struggling with his blackness, which is the same thing that I deal with. I'd say probably weekly at some point. Maybe if not directly, indirectly, often. So again, he's struggling with everyone else's acceptance of his blackness and how he understands there's not a limit, but he's consistently fighting that battle where others see it as a limit, whether they say it directly or indirectly.
And that is true in general of people who are in environments, which is a lot of in corporate, or where they are one of a few. There
Well,
is it's not a ton of Black people in the environment. So, the microaggressions and the code switching and all of that people have to deal with is real, but it's based on other people's perception of us, or what they think we should be, instead of just taking us as just human.
Exactly.
Sometimes they will put on some extra characteristics or assumptions on us that don't exist, or they just say things sometimes just out of the blue that are insulting, and they say they don't realize they're insulting, but I don't think they're that dumb.
I think you got six on one hand, half a dozen on the other. I think
Yeah.
a lot of folks just haven't been exposed, whether
Right.
that's willfully or by choice. You just hadn't
Yeah.
been exposed. So
Yeah. So are your books self-published?
yes. So I did think about going the conventional route, but again, I wanted to delve into and talk about some issues that I wanted to express in my books. I didn't want to be limited that way. So I have a lot more control over when I release, what topics I cover. I've written, remember the last book that I came out with was obviously nonfiction. So just it gives me, more flexibility with my career.
So was your new book, is that self-published as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I've been seeing that places. It's getting, I mean, the title is very provocative.
Yeah. Tell us
It
about
was
it.
meant to be that way. It was meant to
Yeah.
be.
I mean,
Tell us about it.
it's attention. Yeah, it's attention getting. And that's what you want. You want people to stop and look, either because of your title, your cover, or something. Because you're competing with multiple messages all day
Sure.
long and multiple books coming out. People can decide what they want to read. And so it's kind of like one of those things where it's a reel. It's a reel going like this, and you want people to say, okay, let me
You just stop for one
stop at
second.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but your title and your cover with the title
Yeah.
is eye catching.
Tell us about the book. What's everybody is bat as crazy.
So I mean that's basically the truth. At the end of the day, a lot of us try to deny it, especially when we go out in public. Whether you're at church, whether you're at work, or whether you're hanging out with friends. At the end of the day, we all got issues that we're dealing with. We all got problems, and it's just about accepting that life is not perfect and that you're not perfect, and working through those. So one of the quotes I have in the book is life is perfect imperfection. And a lot of people just life is perfect imperfection. A lot of people just never come to grips with that, whether it's their personal life, whether it's their work life, whether it's relationships. But that's life in a nutshell. It's perfect imperfection, and learning to accept and realize that we have no control. It's where a lot of most people's anxiety comes from. Is trying to control, whether it's control the spouse, control the outcome. Once you really dive into it, you really start to understand and realize how little control we have on a day-to-day basis. I mean, you may get to pick what color shirt you put on in the morning. You may get to decide what you want to eat. But once you leave that house, you might be backing out of the driveway and a drunk driver come hit you right in the driveway. I mean, first thing in the morning, like that was completely out of your control. But when you really start to look into your life, you start to see just how little is in your control. So I delve a lot into those issues. Then I delve a lot into happiness. I think that's one of the things that's been sold, especially to Americans, is this thought that we have to be happy 24/7, and if we're not happy 24/7, something's wrong with us. And that's a lie that's been sold to everyone. Happiness is great. It's great to be happy, but you have to understand that happiness in and of itself is fleeting. You're not always going to be happy, and it's probably not good to be happy all the time anyway.
Yeah, you might
Humans,
sometimes if you're on substance abuse, you might feel like you're happy,
that's
but
right. That's
but
right.
I think we appreciate being happy more if it's not a consistent ongoing thing. It's hard to appreciate being happy if you're in a constant state of happiness. It's there's going to be peaks and valleys,
There's going to be peaks and
and
valleys.
that's with life. Nothing's going to be perfect, and like you said, we are it's perfectly imperfect.
Yep.
Right.
And
A lot of
there's a
people are
whole lot we don't control. And this is what I
right.
tell people too, sometimes when they agonize and have anxiety over things and get depressed about things. I say that we don't control this world. The things that happened before, that the world was here millions of years before we got here. It's going to be here millions of years
Mhm.
after we're less than dust. So we have a small window that we get to live in, and we have to make the best of what that window
That's
is.
right.
And
Have to
that's all
maximize.
we can do.
That's right.
And it goes by really, really fast.
Really fast.
Really
Really
fast.
fast.
The only slow part is when you're like when you're trying to get to 21.
Mm,
It seems like that takes forever.
that's
After
true.
that, it's also after that, you turn around, 10 years have passed, 10 more years have passed, and it just is quick.
That's all a blur. That's right.
It really is a blur. So what do you have? What's in the future for your books coming out in the future? What do you have going on?
So I really enjoyed. So I've written two nonfictions now. We talked about the last book that just came out,
Mm-hmm.
but right in the middle of uh, the situation with George Floyd and all of that, I wrote another nonfiction book that I really enjoyed as well. So um, and that was called Stop Killing Us. So I really enjoyed the two nonfiction books that I've written, but I want to get back to my root audience, which is thriller, mystery, fiction. So the next
Okay.
book I'm working on now will be the third in the trilogy, the David Porter series. So it'll be book number 6 in that series. And I know I got a lot of folks that are emailing consistently when the next book coming out, when the next book coming out, when the next book coming out, which is great. But
Yeah.
and you got some of
Yeah.
these readers out here that and I just did it. I bought a book, and my wife will probably kill me, but because I go to the store and I grab the back of it. And I'm reading the jacket while I'm standing there waiting to check out. I'm like, dang, I gotta have,
Right.
I gotta
And then
have.
next thing you know, you bought the book.
Then next thing you know, I got the book. So I read a book called The Party a few weeks ago. I started it at like 7, 8 o'clock that afternoon, and by 2 or 3 o'clock that morning, I had finished the book. Like I just stopped. That's all I did that afternoon. Just read the book, and now I understand what happens with my readers. So I'll release a new book. That I'll spend months on the editing process, etc. And a day later they'll email me and say, "Hey, that was a great book," and I'm like, "Oh my god." So I totally understand. Where other readers come from when they can in one sitting read my book, and it's taken me weeks and months to perfect and put out. So
Yeah.
uh,
Sometimes years.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes years to
Mhm.
get a voracious reader that sits down and reads it in 2 to 3 hours. So
How
uh,
often do you put your books out?
I had been doing at least one a year. I've had a couple of years where I released two. I already released one this year. Doubt I'll get through another one this year. Probably aiming for early next year. Maybe next year I'll try to get two out.
Okay.
Yeah. Now for your novels, how for lack of a better way of asking, what is your word count? Like how thick are they?
Word
Your
count.
average.
So
Your average.
yeah, yeah. So typically I'm aiming 65 to 75 is where I'm aiming.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Uh,
typical novel.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm seeing more people these days are liking the books that are on the shorter. They still want a full novel, but
Hmm.
they want them on the shorter side. They're not looking for the 80,000 to 100,000 word books as much anymore. Not saying that there's not a place for them anymore, but
True.
that 65,000 is usually a pretty comfortable range because people are so busy these days.
Yeah.
Short attention span. That's right.
Yes. And they're being bombarded with so many different images and messages, much more so than ever before.
Right.
And
That's right.
and every time a new social media platform comes out, that just multiplies the images.
Yeah.
TikTok is now
Are
everybody's on TikTok.
are you considering audiobooks?
So I do have a few people who would prefer all of my books be audiobooks. I do have the first one I did an audiobook. So I heard you talk about that during the last interview.
Mm.
That process went pretty well. They had several different voice actors. Listened to, picked a voice actor. We did a contract, and so the first one I'm thinking about doing the rest of them as well. I have had a few folks say, hey, why don't you just read them yourself? And have David Porter, which is my main character, being my voice as opposed to having someone else do it. So I've considered that as well. I know there's a huge audience out there for audiobooks also. So something I'm considering.
I'm a fan of audiobooks. I say that all the time. I love
Me
holding a
too.
book.
I've never
But
listened to one.
no,
For me, I couldn't
I
do
love
my book
audiobooks.
because my main characters are men. So I couldn't really, I don't
But
know
you
how
don't
that
have to
would
read the
work.
book yourself.
No, I'm saying I
Yeah.
couldn't because I don't think it would work with a male-centered storyline. I don't know.
It
But
works.
anyway, I'm
Yeah.
considering it, but I don't know yet. So,
Go for it.
But do you have any
yeah.
appearances anytime soon?
I don't have any schedule. I've done a couple of book signings, here locally here in
That's
Houston,
good.
but I don't have anything planned currently.
Oh, you
Okay.
might have to get them out to the festival.
Yeah.
I'd love
Yeah.
to. I'd love
Yeah.
to.
Now, had you heard about our show before I reached out to you?
I had not. And you started off the show with telling me how you found me, and that was going to be my first question is how you found me. So that was pretty interesting. So because I do the same thing every time I release a book.
Okay.
You're looking at the Amazon charts trying to see, hey, okay, I moved up to number 2.
Yeah.
Can I move up? Yeah. So I do the same thing. So it's pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
And normally I will know the person
Gotcha.
that in the genre that I'm in, depending on
Sure.
what the genre is. And then so in this case, I wasn't familiar with you. And I said, well, let me research. Once I researched and found out that you had several books, I said, well, we need to get and you're from Houston, golly. I should Houston's so big though. It's hard
Sure.
it's hard to know.
Right.
People ask me, do I know so and so? What side of town are they on, and what church do they go to? That's what I ask. And that's how I meet people a lot. Now, what neighborhood did you grow up in? You grew up in Houston proper?
Well, now
Like
it was outside of Houston. So Roshan is outside of Houston.
So
So
you grew
it's
up in Roshan?
that's right, small country
Oh, okay.
town, country boy. That's right.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, my husband's a country boy, so
He must
I
be a
said,
good guy then.
yeah, country boys are solid. They get it. They know what they're supposed to do. That's what I tell women. A country boy, you don't have to tell him what he's supposed to do. He he gets it. So anyway, Terry, thanks so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV. Tell people how they can get your books, your website, your social media, and so forth.
Very good. I appreciate you guys having me once again. You can go to my website, which is www.terrykeysbooks.com.
Okay.
On Facebook, you can just search my name, Terry Keys Author. On Twitter, which is now X, so I'm on there as well. You can join my group. I have a group where you can join a newsletter. You can get to that from the contact page on my website as well. My books are found everywhere books are sold. You can get them on Amazon, which we've kind of talked about a few times here already. Barnes and Noble, Apple, you can get them in all those places. So again, I appreciate you guys having me on. It was very, very interesting. How you came across me, but
Yeah.
God works in mysterious ways. So
God does. And that's the first time that's happened where that's how I came familiar with the author and then invited him on the show. That you're the first.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you being on the show. And we did put your link in the chat so people can go to your website, learn more about your books, and maybe even order a few of them.
Awesome. I appreciate you guys again. I appreciate the time, and I'll definitely be tuning in from now on.
Well, thank you so much for the support.
Gained a new fan. Yep. I appreciate the platform. Great platform here you guys got.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Y'all have a good afternoon.
And you do the same.